Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. Nice to present in this wonderful conference. I learned so much, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow and Saturday as well. So this talk presents one of the many experimental case studies which I conducted during my postdoc project called Reconstructing Early Recordings, a guide for historically informed performance, where I recreated early recording sessions in order to understand some of the musical, technical, and historical context behind early recordings. The use of these recordings as historical documents in performance practice research is both established and diverse. But this project is the first systematic study to explore connections between the performer and mechanical recording technologies. The project evolved through years. It started with me doing wax cylinders, 2-minute wax cylinders, many times until I was happy with the result. Then included my colleagues. Then I moved on to 4-minute cylinders. Then I moved to discs. I did 10-inch discs and 7-inch discs. Yes, that's that. That's enough, I guess. And then I started involving other people. And then we realized that through my research network, we realized that it was incredibly useful to have workshops of public recording sessions where students and people can observe and learn and see the differences of what's played and how it's registered and how does this sound in the room and on the record. We do that, of course, only with cylinders, because with discs, I will tell you why it's not so easy. So about this particular case study, I included here my colleague from Brussels Conservatoire, Dr. Jeroen Villiers. Duncan Miller was my acoustic sound engineer, which I couldn't do any of this work without Duncan, because he's like, we do all of that together. And my husband, Dr. Inja Stanović from London College of Communication, made all the digital recordings and all the digital transfers. Ghent was such an important center of horn playing that famous players coming from the town were nicknamed Braves Belges, brave Belgians, by their contemporaries. Ghentian horn players had a poetic playing style, and they used crooked piston horns and had a clear preference for the instruments made by Brussels manufacturer, I can't read this name, but I'll try, von Hovler. Okay, there will be a written thing. Here, it's here. Super. So Charles Ulbrecht was a famous teacher at the Ghent Royal Conservatory and prominent figure in the Belgian Belle Epoque. He recorded at least 2 solo discs for a company called Chantal. The company was based in Ghent, obviously, and sub-labels often mention a company as a Compagnie Belge Chantal or simply Compagnie Chantal. The Chantal label grew from the music shop called Chantal. I don't know how many times I will say this word today, but yes, Chantal, founded in 1913 by Julian and Albert Meuremans, whose father, Leon Meuremans, was a locally famous conductor and instrument builder. So the company was initially registered as an importer of records, but soon it also registered as a manufacturer. So they had everything. They had a music shop and they were dealing and they were then producing. So Leon Meuremans was not only Ulbrecht's colleague at the conservatory, but his instrument supplier. So throughout its existence, Chantal recorded around 4,000 songs, many with their own band and dance orchestra called Jazz Band Chantal and L'Orchestre de Danse Chantal. Their repertoire consisted of both Dutch and French songs. So it's generally considered that Chantal records are not really good quality because the material employed was so soft and couldn't withstand the wear and tear caused by sharp-pointed steel needles. Due to economic crisis and the growing popularity of the radio, the company started to have problems from 1932, and then it was taken by Edison Bell and then went bankrupt in 1935. So the Ulbrecht disc was made by Chantal, and this was the disc we decided to kind of recreate. Not recreate as copy, but take that as something what we will then use as a guidance, as an exemplar of how to make a disc. And I will explain why, because we had so many, really, so much good fortune in this case study. So Helbrecht disc contains 2 lyrical pieces for horn and piano. One side is an arrangement of Mozart's vegan Lied K350, and on the disc label stated as Berceuse de Mozart. And the other side is colorful performance of the descriptive Le Passant Serenade Nocturne pour Cor by Gentian composer Leo van der Hagen. So here is a little bit of this vegan Lied. Yeah. So the other side is this. This is Serenade, and there is a press clipping which you have here, and I find it funny that the Serenade you will understand immediately when it starts playing. Okay, so. Very repetitive, as you can imagine. So the Helbrecht disc features the same instrumental repertoire choice common to the Gentian horn school. The use of crooked valve horn matches chosen pieces, both of which doesn't give up. Both of which would please record-buying audiences, principally the conservative Belgian bourgeoisie. Helbrecht's playing style matches. I think just go to the other one. Yeah, okay, super. It matches other horn recordings from the Belle Epoque era. He uses rubato and rhythmical activations, portamento style legato, and irregular articulation. In both pieces, Helbrecht concludes the phrases with truncated endings, as it's rushing to the following phrase. Even so, his interpretation remains highly musical. He uses expressive techniques such as tempo and intonation changes in tandem with tonal colorings, which he enhances with the use of mutes and changing crooks. There are several intriguing musical points on both sides of the disc, such a remarkable speed of the lip trill at the end of Berceuse and the speed of the slurs in Le Passant, in the Serenade. So we were really fortunate when planning this reconstruction. Not only we had all the supporting materials, we also had original disc. We actually had the original disc, which we could actually then transfer, which I'll talk about in a moment. We had the horn Helbrecht used for this recording, because Ghent Conservatory is really nice, so they just gave us the horn because my colleague was employed by them at the time. The mouthpiece as well, and even the stop. Then we had the score once belonging to Helbrecht, a manuscript with compositions which were transposed and transcribed. My piano was 1910 Broadwood upright. I always match my instruments to the mechanical machines, because I think that it's really important for the color, for the sound. So we basically had everything, and it's really important to say that we actually had this original disc, because once our disc was made, we made a transfer of both discs on the same day, using the same gramophone, using everything the same, so the both we could actually compare, which I will then show you in a moment. So just to make, so I do all of these things I want everything to be transparent. So I am always very open about equipment which I'm using. So we had 2 recording funnels, a steel recording funnel and a large zinc funnel, together with a sliding trunnion recorder, 15mm diameter glass diaphragm. Digital recording equipment was used, of course, alongside mechanical technologies, which included a pair of AKG 4-on-4 microphones, a pair of DPA microphones, Steinberg UR22 sound card, and DAW Cubase 10.5. So you could notice in previous slides that both pieces on the original disc are just over 3 minutes long. They were like 3.9. The 10-inch disc can carry a maximum of 3.15, 3 minutes 15. So which indicates a possibility that these pieces were arranged exactly for that session. That's why he had the transcription and everything. So such a tight duration of the pieces meant that every slowing down had to be carefully planned and often compensated by speeding up elsewhere. Really, you come to that old-fashioned, you have to return what you borrowed, kind of tempo rubato understanding. So similar to the early 20th century setting, wax blanks are still expensive to make, and there are rarely many available for the recording musicians to go through. So the studios of the time would have a shaving machine. We do have a shaving machine, but you will see my very fancy room where we did that. It's not fancy at all. We couldn't fit one in the room. So we just had 10 blanks for 5 pieces. That's really not a lot. Again, once the take was done, we couldn't listen to it. The wax blanks are used to make a mold, which is in turn then used to produce the final discs. So because of the difficulty of recording, so this is my fancy music room in the University of Huddersfield, where I was doing my postdoc. We started our recording sessions with a lot of tests. The horn projects its sound backwards, which is really awkward for recording because it's the other way around. So the tests included playing at various distances from the recording funnel and different positions of the horn. A short excerpt of the berceuse was played 6 times, 3 with a bell positioned directly facing the funnel, followed by 3 takes with a bell on 90-degree angle, and then each set of 3 takes started with a horn at the 10 centimeters, and then further 25, and then further 25. This was marked on the floor, and we actually made the digital, the recordings, of course, of this to understand which one is the best. These tests were played back, so we understand which sound we like the most. So the tests, once you play it back, it's not so, you can't really press a disc out of that, but we tried as well, but so that also worked. But we needed to know that. But so we established the best position for the horn, and then we needed to do the test for ensemble. The test included various positions of recording funnel towards both the piano and the horn. 2 recording funnels were used because of the differences in volume between 2 instruments would be too large with a single funnel shared by both. It's a horn, it's incredibly loud. That's a person who he had to actually tone down his playing, not, I needed to play really loudly if he really didn't. So the distance and direction experiments show that the angle between the horn bell and recording funnel affected the sound quality much more than the distance itself. And this is really important, especially in our later experience with singers. It is not how close you are to the end, but where your head is pointing. And this is really, really important to have for articulation and perception. So the horn player's tonguing sounded much more pronounced and direct in the closer takes. On the original disc, the horn player seemed to play a little more direct in the recording funnel. However, articulation seems to be softer than on reproduced disc. So the muted passages also seem to confirm that the mute was used in an appropriate way. The style approaches were modified throughout the session itself, and the personal expressional explorations therefore became conditioned by the technicality of mechanical recording machines. The examples of these are few, and they include that the horn player was influenced by the physicality of horn, that I changed the posture of hand and body. The ensemble communication in this context didn't change significantly because we actually could see each other. Recording conditions seem to enhance the effect of portamento slurs, and we both applied what we thought that it's an exaggerated amount of rubato, but when we heard it back, it didn't really sound like that. And now, phew, let's hear how this sounds like. So these are mine. Sorry, I need to stop it, and then this one as well. Okay, so what did we now do with that? We did those transfers, yeah, we heard the things, and then these are a couple of thoughts on what we did. There is a durational difference between the transfers. This was not planned. You could notice how Mozart was really slow. The original one is really, really slow. It is a good tempo because it's both sides of the record. They're completely fine. Also, because of the duration of 3.9, I know that it can be. I was so nervous that I will run out of this space. That we look how much. I mean, this is a considerably faster thing. And even though we were really preparing to play in this tempo, once this thing started going, okay, let's go. And it's really I'm not happy with how this recording sounds like, because it really does have that moment of like it's not Berceuse. I really played it a little bit more like like I was going. The next recording I'm actually more happy with, and this one is more on the spot. It's very, very minimal difference in tempo. So then and therefore duration. So there is a difference in also frequency range. 1914 disc captures substantially more higher frequencies than our one. This is likely to do differences in mechanical recording technologies. The traversing turntable disc recorder, which Duncan Miller built in 2013, and the 1914 machine are really, they have the same elements and everything, but they are two different machines. So I can't really say that they will produce it's similar enough. I was really actually surprised by the tone quality and the loudness and the frequency. So besides possible dissimilarities between the machines, other factors causing these frequency differences could include position and the distance of instruments from the recording funnel, along with the differences between the volumes that performers played during the recording session. Then we had the differences in dynamic range. This where you can see you can't see it here. You can see it here. Here the mute comes in, and see how ours is more pronounced than theirs. And it is not about the actual level of playing, but we assume that somebody in the recording session put a little sheet or a curtain in front because of the like a tonal color change. And it's really, really, or the person moved back, but I don't think that he would be walking around with the horn, maybe, but there is a very significant kind of a difference in those two ways of when we look at ours and theirs, the original disc, right? So To conclude, this is the distance study. We also did that, so you can see how is that there. So to conclude, artistic and technical parameters both of us needed to adjust in order to record mechanically are many. Not being able to hear back what you did is incredibly stressful, especially on a medium which sounds so different when it's registered to what you played. We both wondered whether recording would feel equally uncomfortable if the opportunity to hear back a take soon after it was recorded had this never become an option. So because they never had that option, so that it was not that uncomfortable for musicians then. This case study confirmed that even an extensive amount of performance practices research is insufficient to entirely erase the performance styles that both of us were brought up with. In the moments of stress, we reacted like 21st century musicians, unfortunately, not as 19th century. So stepping into historical recording session influenced our performance not only in this session, but also had further consequences, as this experience changed our understanding of acoustic discs in general. So there is an important segment of experiencing the physicality of mechanical recording process, because it's not easy and one has to change a lot of things in order to record. Once in experience, it's really difficult to explain, but it's like your body recognizes what it has to do to produce that sound. And therefore the technical changes are really, they have altered the perception of some musical parameters in the historical recordings. The study proved how important it is to try to grasp all the context around historical recordings, and researchers and performance interested in historical performance practices will continue to conduct their research using historical written and audio sources, treatises, and various other forms of written evidence. However, this study suggests that practical experiments involving mechanical recording technologies should join this group, as we all have a lot to learn from this. And hopefully this talk, alongside the recordings we made, will be a stepping stone towards this endeavor. Thank you very much.